Dr. Paul Harris, based on his 42 years of experience in the field of integrative medicine. Dr. Harris is licensed by the PMA as a Doctor of Pastoral Science and Medicine and holds a degree in naturopathy, certifications as a QRA practitioner, natural health care practitioner, and is a certified personal trainer. Dr. Harris has lectured to physicians in the U.S., Europe, South America, and Australia on how to integrate natural medicine into a traditional medical practice. He has provided technical training in microcurrent therapy and bionetics testing to healthcare practitioners in the United States and Europe. Dr. Harris introduced microcurrent therapy to the Olympic physicians at the Olympic Training Center in Athens, Greece. He is currently in private practice in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
All right, let's move to coffee or focus up. Actually, I like a little bit of both. I have a cup of coffee every morning, and then I have focus up, and I am wired and ready to go to work. Focus up. We're going to talk about each individual ingredient. So why do we need to take focus up? What's so important about focus up? So before we get into each individual ingredient, I'm going to spend some of my time, my 30 minutes, and I want to talk to you about brain function. Folks, this is incredibly, incredibly important that you understand what I'm about to share with you. There are many reasons for taking focus up, but the one thing that really motivates me more than anything else that I can think of for taking focus up is this. Number one in 8 seniors will develop Alzheimer's in their lifetime. And as a side note, Alzheimer's is now being called type 3 diabetes. Diabetics have a significantly greater risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. As a matter of fact, in the past few years, the connection between Alzheimer's and diabetes has grown stronger with each study. And people who have type 2 diabetes often experience a sharp decline in cognitive function. And almost 70% of these individuals develop Alzheimer's. This is important information. This is what motivates me to spend my evenings talking about these products, what they do for you, and how they can help reduce some of these risk factors. As a matter of fact, there was a recent study published in the journal Neurology, and they found that people with type 2 diabetes are more likely to develop the brain tangles, also known as neurofibrillary tangles, commonly seen in people with Alzheimer's disease. And they found that participants with type 2 diabetes were more likely to have the brain tangles even if they did not have dementia or memory loss. Important. Number 2, our children. I'm seeing more and more cases of autism, of ADD, ADHD, and it's heartbreaking. 1 in 8 children are also diagnosed with brain development disorders, including autism, ADD, and ADHD. I recall one, on a personal note, a personal friend of mine was a young lady in college, brilliant young lady, but she was having problems focusing and concentrating, and she wasn't doing that well in school, and she was considering dropping out. So I said, why don't you try the Focus Up? Just try it for a week. And I didn't hear anything from her. After the first week, 2 weeks later, I got a text from Mom. She said, I don't know what was in that product, said, but she is doing awesome in school. She's not going to drop out, and she now is number 1 in her class because she had terrible ADHD, just could not focus and concentrate. So that's just one example. I want to look deeper. So sharpen your pencils, and we are going to get out of this, I promise you. We're going to look deeper at the relationship between the brain and the autonomic nervous system, or the ANS. The autonomic nervous system, I want you to understand this. We're talking about brain products, so we're going to talk about the brain. So the autonomic nervous system runs the show. The autonomic nervous system controls our organs, our arteries, our glands, and our digestive system. We have no conscious awareness of this activity. For example, Bodie, you don't have to stay up at night and tell your lungs to breathe, right? Ronnie, you don't have to sit up and tell your heart to beat. And Connie, you don't have to tell your stomach to digest the cheeseburger that you had for dinner, if you had a cheeseburger for dinner. Just using that as an example. These are automatically occurring, and we want the autonomic nervous system to work in balance and to work effortlessly. So by now you may be wondering, all of you folks out there, what is your point, Dr. Paul, with all of this information? Well, for starters, a lot of us are under stress. Chronic stress inhibits the flow of oxygen to the brain, and especially in sympathetic dominance. So if your brain is stressed out, if it's inflamed and malnourished, and we suffer with accelerated brain damage and degeneration, rather, then we risk problems and have problems with high blood pressure and digestive complaints and dry eyes and incontinence and poor memory and brain fog and much, much more. So we're going to take a little fast trip now with the gut-brain axis, because if your brain's not working right, if you're missing, for example, some of these nutrients, you're not taking these nootropic nutrients, then this will help you understand the need for taking them. So the brain plays a major role in your gastrointestinal function. Your brain plays a huge role in your body's ability, your stomach's ability to digest, and your intestinal ability to absorb food. This includes controlling peristaltic action. I've seen patients that had chronic constipation, for example. So they lack that peristaltic or squeezing action that moves the waste products through the body. Well, the brain plays a huge role in that. So if you're under a lot of stress and have poor diet and you're needing some of these nutrients, that can be the reason why. Also, a healthy brain helps to release digestive enzymes to break your food down, and helps with blood flow and chemicals to support the gut. So your digestive system actually has its own nervous system called the enteric nervous system. So here's the rundown. So let's get right to it. Here's the way it works. It starts with your brain making a phone call to your gut, or your gut's brain, called the enteric nervous system. The call comes through the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve emerges from the brain stem, and it goes through your body's organs, including those in the digestive tract. Now listen carefully. Here's the take-home point. As your brain loses functionality, as you're stressed out, all of these things going on, a person begins to lose digestive ability. As the gut-brain axis loses its efficiency, then the vagus nerve loses its ability to promote the release of HCl to digest your proteins. This is a bidirectional thing. If you've got stress in the brain, it can affect your gut. If you've got stress and inflammation in the gut, it can affect your brain. Now, you can experience digestive problems that are not caused by poor brain function, but if you have brain fog, here's the criteria. If you have brain fog and nothing seems to help your digestive system, then consider the possibility of a poor brain function, and you just might be a candidate for Focus Up and Revital Mind. So these are all important facts to know, that when your autonomic nervous system is working correctly, you're going to have good digestion, normal blood pressure, good sleeping patterns, good memory, and basically a great hair day. So if you're under chronic stress and you eat a poor diet, if you smoke, if you drink too much, or you're overexposed to chemical and environmental chemicals, one or more of the brain regions begin to degenerate. And lastly, chronically elevated cortisol. When you're under chronic stress, chronically elevated cortisol from chronic stress kills brain cells. In the Journal of Neuroendocrinology, 1994, increased cortisol levels in aging and Alzheimer's disease and postmortem cerebral spinal fluid was positive. So these individuals, after they had deceased, they had elevated levels of cortisol from chronic stress. So what do we do about all of this? Well, first of all, you need to embrace a healthy lifestyle, eating correctly, eating healthy, eating clean, exercising, reducing unnecessary stress, and then taking Zoom and nootropic supplements like Focus Up and Revital Mind. So let's now go over some of the ingredients that we've kind of laid a laborious background for the next segment of our presentation. We're going to talk about the individual ingredients in the Focus Up. Number one up is acetyl L-carnitine. Now, acetyl L-carnitine is an ingredient that offers superior protection from stress and excitotoxic damage. For example, when you eat the pink sugar, that causes your neurons to fire and fire and fire and fire rapidly to the point where they fire to the point where they just die. And there are other things that can cause excitotoxic damage. Certain medications can cause excitotoxic damage, overfiring to the point where the neuron just dies. So acetyl L-carnitine in the Focus Up helps to protect you from that excitotoxic damage. It also has an energetic and regenerative effect on your brain cells. Now, we've just talked about all the potential problems and things that can happen. And so the acetyl L-carnitine helps to protect that. Alzheimer's and cognitive decline are problems of nerve-related wear and tear that involve the formation of amyloid plaquing. So all of these nootropic ingredients help with this. ALC also helps your brain metabolize fat and cholesterol. And why is that important? Well, your brain is mostly fat, and 70% of that fat is very important to consume. So don't be afraid of taking healthy fats. ALC is known to boost general nerve transmission, and this was tested in diabetic patients with peripheral neuropathy. And I'm sure you probably know what peripheral neuropathy is, where you have the burning and stinging sensation if you have diabetic, and sometimes numbness. All right, the next ingredient is green tea. Green tea has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant capability, and a little bit of caffeine, and that's where you get some of your energy from. It helps with your memory. 250 milligrams of green tea increase brain connections that process and store information. It's also been shown to be protective in digestive cancer. It protects your brain. There's a polyphenol in green tea that can protect you against neurological diseases, according to studies in mice. It burns fat. That's good news. Human studies are far from conclusive, but there's good research that's showing green tea plus exercise promotes a significant belly fat burning. All right, next ingredient is benefits of rhodiola rosea. This is an interesting product in that it works as an adaptogen. And so if the adrenal gland, for example, is hypervigilant, overactive, it helps to calm it down and dampen the effect of the adrenal overactive functionality. Or if it's underactive, it also helps to strengthen it and stabilize that. So rhodiola helps to regulate hormones. It helps to boost energy. It helps in muscle recovery. It helps in cardiac problems, immune system stimulation, and also stress reduction. Rhodiola, and this is important, especially as it relates to brain. There is a part of your brain called the blood-brain barrier, and the blood-brain barrier it's a highly selective group of network vessels in your brain that only allows certain things to get in your brain and certain things to leave your brain. So it's very protective, and sometimes it kind of gets congested. And so the rhodiola helps to enhance the permeability of the blood-brain barrier, so you can get more tryptophan, which converts into serotonin, and it just helps overall brain function. And as the slide says, unobstructed transport of dopamine and serotonin, and these are two transmitters that are essential for regulating mood and promoting a good quality of life. All right, the next ingredient is DMAE. DMAE may play a role in treating memory lapses or senior moments and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. There's also studies that have shown that it has helped with attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. DMAE, the interesting part about DMAE is it helps speed the production of acetylcholine. And acetylcholine helps you with memory and learning. And acetylcholine is a crucial neurotransmitter that's responsible for carrying messages between brain cells and from the brain to muscles that control body movements. And acetylcholine is essentially a synthesized product of choline, and it's involved in higher brain functions such as learning, recall, and memory. And then lastly, DMA is a potent site-specific free radical scavenger. And free radicals are highly reactive molecular fragments that can cause damage. This is one of the ways that radiation, for example, does the damage that it does. It causes free radical damage. And it's DMAE is a very important free radical scavenger. All right, next up is huperzine A. This is a Chinese plant, club moss, and it is a natural supplement that has a range of nootropic benefits, things that benefit the brain and nervous system, and it helps to improve memory function. The most common use of huperzine A includes the treatment of neurological problems such as Alzheimer's. It also is beneficial with memory loss and increases acetylcholine levels in the brain, and helps with memory formation and the ability to process or calculate data. The next ingredient is vinpocetine. Vinpocetine is one of my favorites. It's actually the periwinkle plant, Vinca minor, and it's used in Japan and Europe actually to treat post-stroke victims. And it's used to treat a number of cerebrovascular diseases, and it offers a potential neuroprotective effect as well. Here's what vinpocetine does. It has an effect on the brain blood vessels and brain blood flow and brain cells themselves. And so essentially what this does, it helps to enhance the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the brain. There are several things that can affect your brain function, and one of the game changers, for example, is if a person presents with anemia. If you're anemic, then you're not going to deliver adequate amounts of oxygen to the brain, which can affect all of these things we've been talking about for the past few minutes. And also, if you have diabetes or blood sugar dysregulation, that can also affect the delivery of oxygen into your brain. So it's not just individual ingredient or ingredients in Focus Up. It's the brilliant combination of all of them collectively. And so that's what makes it so special. And